a US-India trade deal, not a full-fledged agreement, more of a mini deal. President Donald Trump also spoke about the possibility of a deal with India. He said it could be signed soon.
We've made a deal with United Kingdom. We've made a deal with China. We've made a deal. We're close to making a deal with India.
We see that a mini deal between India and the US.
I told you we'll make some deals, but for the most part, we're going to send a letter. We're going to say, welcome to the United States if you'd like to participate in the greatest, most successful.
A quiet trade war just roared to life, and the global economy is already feeling the aftershocks. In a move that stunned economists, diplomats, and manufacturers alike, India has officially filed a request with the World Trade Organization to impose retaliatory tariffs against the United States. The trigger? A sweeping American tariff on imported Indian automobiles, 20% across the board. At first glance, this might sound like just another round of trade tensions, but beneath the surface, something much bigger is happening. What began as a single policy change is now threatening to unravel one of the most critical economic relationships of the decade, and could soon pull other nations into the fray. If you think stories like this matter, hit that like button and subscribe. YouTube doesn't always push this kind of content, but your support keeps these deep dives alive and visible. Thank you for being part of it. Let's walk through what just happened and why it matters so much. Earlier this year, the US government enacted a 20% tariff on all Indian-made cars and auto parts entering the American market. The official reason? National security concerns and a desire to shield domestic automakers from overseas competition. The messaging was clear. This was about protecting American industry, boosting jobs, and leveling the playing field. But in India, the reaction was anything but quiet. Officials in New Delhi described the move as both unexpected and unjustified. They immediately launched a full-scale review of US-India trade relations, called Emergency Meetings with Business Leaders, and began preparing a formal complaint through the World Trade Organization. Now that complaint is official, and it's not just symbolic. India is seeking WTO approval to impose retaliatory duties worth nearly $880 million annually, mirroring the estimated damage Indian auto exporters will suffer under the US tariff. And what's on India's hit list? It's wide-ranging and strategic. Proposed duties could target US agricultural exports, processed foods, textiles, consumer tech, and even American-made electric vehicles and auto parts. These are sectors with real political and economic weight in the US, especially in swing states and farm-heavy regions. But here's the twist. India is not alone. In the wake of the US tariff, at least 4 other countries, Vietnam, Thailand, Brazil, and Japan, are reportedly weighing similar retaliatory steps. Some have already begun drafting complaints. Others are waiting to see how the WTO responds to India's move. What we're witnessing isn't just a dispute. It's the early formation of a global pushback, a multi-country realignment that could reshape how the US trades with the world. And for everyday people, this is about to get real. Let's start in India. American cars, from brands like Ford, Tesla, and GM, were already seen as luxury purchases in the Indian market. Now, thanks to the US tariff and India's expected retaliation, their prices are soaring. Reports from dealerships in Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore suggest that prices on imported US vehicles have jumped between 11% and 16% in just a few weeks. Foot traffic is down, sales are stalling, and the momentum around electric vehicles, especially US-made models, is starting to fade. But the impact won't stop in India. Back in the United States, farmers and food producers are already starting to feel the heat. India is a major buyer of American almonds, apples, lentils, dairy, and processed grains. Many contracts are being quietly shelved or renegotiated under less favorable terms. Exporters in states like California, Wisconsin, and Michigan are seeing deals fall through, often with no explanation beyond market uncertainty. If India's proposed tariffs go through, the US food industry could lose over $600 million per year in exports. That's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. That's real-world pain for farmers, logistics workers, warehouse operators, and small businesses across the American heartland. And remember, many of these operations are already working with razor-thin margins. But here's where things get more dangerous. India isn't just retaliating, it's replacing. Since the US imposed its tariffs, India has ramped up trade talks with other partners. In the past 6 weeks alone, it has finalized new investment agreements with South Korea, Germany, and Japan to boost domestic auto production and secure parts from allies, tariff-free. India is also strengthening its regional trade ties, and that means fewer opportunities for US companies to compete in one of the world's fastest-growing auto markets, with over 3 million vehicles sold annually and a middle class ready to spend. Translation? The US is being squeezed out of the picture. And at a recent summit in Singapore, Indian officials made it clear they're not just retaliating, they're rethinking. A top trade negotiator stated that India is now actively exploring long-term replacements for sensitive American imports. That may sound like a bluff, but if India follows through, the damage to US exporters could be long-term, not just temporary. So why did the US enact this tariff in the first place? According to analysts, it was a broad signal, aimed not just at India, but at all trade partners. The message: the United States is no longer willing to tolerate one-sided deals. It was about asserting control, boosting leverage, and showing domestic strength. But what the administration may not have anticipated is the speed and coordination of the backlash. As one former trade official put it, you don't win a global negotiation by alienating all your players. In fact, several foreign automakers that manufacture vehicles in the United States for export are now warning of potential layoffs. Plants in Ohio, Michigan, and South Carolina, where Japanese and Korean companies operate, may be forced to scale back if Indian demand continues to drop. In other words, a policy meant to protect US jobs could actually end up killing them. And there's more. Shipping lanes between US and Indian ports are already being rerouted. Major logistics firms are adjusting freight paths. Indian e-commerce giants like Flipkart and Tata Neu are reducing their stock of US-sourced electronics, car parts, and accessories. In some cases, they're removing them entirely. What does that mean for consumers? If you're an Indian buyer looking for an American-made tablet or EV charger, you're about to face limited availability and higher prices. And in the US, if you shop for Indian textiles, auto tools, or even specialty food items, get ready to pay more or find nothing at all. We are now watching a policy that was supposed to promote American strength turn into an economic boomerang. It's no longer about tariffs. It's about trust, supply chains, access, and influence. The WTO is now reviewing India's proposal. That process could take up to 60 days, but India has already indicated it might not wait. If the organization delays or politicizes the ruling, India could move ahead unilaterally, and that could set off a global domino effect. Other countries watching this, like Mexico, Canada, South Korea, and even the European Union, might file their own complaints. Or worse, they might launch their own countermeasures. And the hardest truth? No one voted for this. Ordinary consumers, farmers, factory workers, small businesses. They didn't sign up for a global trade fight, but now they're the ones footing the bill. Higher prices, slower deliveries, canceled contracts, lost jobs. And for what? A policy that may have backfired more than it landed. We're not saying there's no way back. There is. But it's going to take more than press releases and posturing. It'll require real negotiations, sincere commitments, and a clear understanding that in today's hyper-connected economy, retaliation doesn't equal resolution. This moment is critical. India isn't just another partner. It's the world's most populous country, the 5th largest economy, and a core member of the emerging global middle class. Losing India's market permanently could isolate the United States at a time when economic allies matter more than ever. As the WTO hearings begin, millions of people are watching. Not because they're obsessed with trade policy, but because this could directly affect what they buy, what they earn, and how their future unfolds. So what happens next? It's not just about tariffs anymore. It's about whether the US can lead through cooperation, or whether it will watch global supply chains move on without it. Thanks for watching. If you found this analysis helpful, give it a like, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe so you never miss what's really happening in the world economy. Because in today's global market, what starts as a policy shift can reshape everything. Stay tuned. We'll be watching.